A simple rule: when gold doubles, empires collapse. It's not a myth, it's not a theory, it's the pattern that has ended every great civilization from Rome to the United States. The doubling of gold is not a sign of prosperity, it's a distress signal. It marks the moment when trust dies, when promises become paper, and when those who understand the blueprint quietly exchange illusions for something real. It has already happened. And while most of the world stares at the chaos that follows, wars, markets, headlines, they miss the real event, the greatest transfer of wealth in human history, triggered and accelerating before their eyes. The fall of an empire never destroys wealth. It simply moves it from those who don't understand value to those who do, from savers who believe the illusion to builders who read the pattern. The mechanism that decides who loses and who wins has been with us for thousands of years, designed by the powerful, maintained by the powerful, and powered by one simple process: the debasement of money. Before we start, subscribe and like, because the truth gets darker the deeper you go. They tell you money is complicated, that it depends on economists, models, and policies. They make it sound like an art of numbers beyond your reach, a sacred science you're too small to understand. But the truth is brutally simple. When a government spends more than it earns, it doesn't stop. It prints. Every printed dollar, every conjured coin, every digital keystroke quietly steals from your savings. It's invisible theft, or attacks without debate, a robbery disguised as rescue. Empires don't fall because foreign armies storm the gates. They fall because their money rots from within. The soldiers, the merchants, the citizens, they all feel it long before the historians record it. And through it all, one measure has never lied: gold. Gold is not wealth, it is truth. It doesn't bend, it doesn't negotiate, and it doesn't care who's in power. Currencies come and go, names and flags change, but when they fail, gold stands where they once ruled. The doubling of gold isn't a miracle. It's the market screaming that the mask is off, that faith has expired, and that the blueprint of collapse has begun to write itself again. Rome, the empire that taught the world what power looks like and what decay feels like. Its backbone was not gold, but silver, the denarius. When first minted in 211 BC, it was pure, solid, and trusted. For 3 centuries, the denarius was Rome itself, stable, respected, and real. But no empire can resist temptation forever. The temptation to spend beyond its means, to bribe the present at the expense of the future, to believe that decrees can replace discipline. Nero reduced the silver purity from 95% to 90%. Trajan cut it again. By the time of the Ming Dynasty, half the silver was gone. A coin once worth its weight in metal had become a hollow symbol of broken promises. To fund wars, monuments, and the luxuries of the elite, emperors debased the currency until by 250 AD, the denarius held less than 5% silver. It was copper disguised as trust, a coin that turned your palm gray as its thin silver coat wore off. The market saw through the illusion. Soldiers refused pay in worthless metal. Merchants demanded gold instead, and prices soared by 1,000%. Bread cost more by the week, and the poor starved while officials blamed speculators. When the money died, order followed. In just 50 years, Rome cycled to 26 emperors, most killed by their own guards. The empire cracked from within. Proof that once gold doubles, faith ends, and empires die not from invasion, but from their own corruption. 15 centuries later, the same story resurfaced under new flags. Spain, the richest empire on earth, overflowing with treasure fleets from the New World. From the mountain of Potosi alone came enough silver to flood Europe. The Spaniards believed they had conquered scarcity. They didn't need to build, invent, or produce. They could simply buy. But money without labor is a curse that eats its host from within. Between 1500 and 1600, prices across Europe quadrupled. Wages lagged behind. Bread, rent, wool, everything essential climbed beyond reach. Even as galleons arrived heavy with silver, the empire was sinking in debt. King Philip II defaulted again and again, each time borrowing more to postpone the inevitable. When creditors finally closed in, Spain reached for Rome's old trick: debasement. Copper coins called vellon replaced silver. Officials swore they held equal value, but markets have no faith in decrees. Gold and silver doubled against the copper. The elites, holding real metal and land, saw their fortunes swell. The middle class, the soldiers, the farmers, those who held paper promises, were wiped out. Spain, the empire that owned half the world, went bankrupt. The pattern was clear: debasement, doubling, downfall. The same melody every empire eventually sings before silence.
Centuries before the West discovered printing presses, China had already mastered them and paid the same price. In 1375, the Ming Dynasty introduced the world's first true fiat currency, the Great Ming Treasure Note. On paper, it was revolutionary. No need for silver or gold, no limits, no mines, no scarcity. Just print value into existence. At first, it worked. The economy expanded, trade flourished, and officials celebrated their brilliance. But temptation is timeless. The presses never stopped. Year after year, new notes were printed to pay for wars, palaces, and projects the empire couldn't afford. Within decades, the paper collapsed by more than 99% of its original value. Markets panicked. Merchants refused to accept the currency. The government tried to force obedience with threats and decrees. But you can't legislate trust. The people revolted, not with swords, but with silver. They remonetized the economy themselves. Silver became money again, because reality always reasserts itself. The state had no choice but to follow, collecting taxes in silver to restore stability. For a while, it worked. But when Japan closed its ports and Spain's silver fleets dwindled, the supply that sustained the system vanished. Silver's price tripled, then quadrupled against the copper coins peasants used for daily life. The gap was fatal. They earned in copper, but taxes were due in silver, a burden no farmer could bear. Poverty spread like wildfire. Hunger became rebellion, and rebellion became revolution. By 1644, the dynasty collapsed under the weight of its own monetary illusion. The rule proved eternal. When the hard asset doubles, the empire breaks. Centuries later, the stage shifted westward. The 20th century crowned a new empire, Britain. The pound sterling was as good as gold, and London stood as the beating heart of global finance. For over 100 years, the world trusted the pound as the foundation of trade and wealth, just as it trusts the dollar today. But wars are expensive lies. In 1914, Britain suspended the gold standard temporarily. Inflation seeped in, debt soared, and confidence quietly eroded. After 2 world wars, the illusion finally shattered. In 1949, the government devalued the pound by 30% overnight. The price of gold in pounds surged the same amount, not a reward, but a revelation. The empire's financial might had crumbled. The market had rendered its verdict. The pound fell. The empire followed. The torch passed to America, and the blueprint advanced to its next chapter. And America believed it was different. In 1944, the Bretton Woods system made the dollar the world's reserve currency, promising every government that $35 equaled 1 ounce of gold. The world trusted it. For decades, the system worked. The dollar became the bloodstream of global trade, the benchmark of oil, the measure of power itself. But like Rome, like Spain, temptation crept in. The Vietnam War, expanding welfare, deficits that grew without limit. Dollars poured into the world faster than gold left the ground. Confidence began to stretch thinner than the gold that backed it. By the late 1960s, foreign nations led by France called America's bluff. They sent their dollars home and demanded payment in gold. Shipments left Fort Knox. The vaults began to echo. Then in August 1971 came the quiet coup of modern finance. President Nixon went on television and announced that the U.S. would temporarily close the gold window. The word temporary became the greatest lie in economic history. That moment changed the world forever. Money stopped being metal. It became faith. And faith can't be weighed. It can only be believed. And faith, history reminds us,
is fragile. It lasts right until the moment it doesn't. Gold's price, locked at $35, suddenly broke free like a prisoner. Within a few short years, it doubled, then tripled, then rocketed beyond $800 by 1980. Inflation roared through every home. The purchasing power of the dollar fell by half. The doubling was the signal. The system was broken. The empire's money was now backed not by value, but by promises. And when promises become the foundation of wealth, collapse doesn't happen overnight. It ticks silently, like a clock counting down to zero.
Today, that countdown has reached its final stage. The United States is the last empire standing in a 5,000-year pattern. After the 2008 crisis came a flood of new money. After the 2020 pandemic, the flood became a tsunami. Trillions printed, debt unpayable, interest payments larger than defense budgets, a system surviving on confidence alone, propped up by the belief that tomorrow will somehow fix today. But belief is not collateral. It's a candle in a storm. The blueprint is unfolding exactly as it always does. When faith becomes collateral, doubt becomes the debt. People can feel it in prices, in rents, in the slow erosion of their savings. They know something is wrong even if they can't explain why, because empires don't announce their collapse. They leak it, $1 at a time. And right on cue, the system offers a new illusion, a digital gold, Bitcoin, the modern ark, they say, a peer-to-peer currency free from the control of governments. But history whispers a warning. Every empire builds traps for those who think they've escaped. Bitcoin depends on the internet, the power grid, and regulated exchanges, all controlled by the same institutions it claims to replace. It lives in a cage of wires and code. They don't need to destroy it. They can freeze it, tax it, or starve it with a single law. They can flip a switch and turn faith into failure. The same blueprint that broke empires now runs in digital form, brilliant, seductive, and invisible. It promises freedom while tightening the net. It's a masterpiece of control disguised as liberation, a ghost asset that exists everywhere, yet nowhere you can truly hold. So where does real wealth go when the illusions die? It goes where it always has, into the tangible. The blueprint for survival hasn't changed in 5,000 years. Gold, silver, land, and real productive assets. The oldest families, the central banks, the sovereign funds, they know. While the public debates digital coins, they are quietly buying record amounts of gold, repatriating it from foreign vaults and holding it where no network can touch it. They are not gambling on code. They are fortifying reality. Because wealth that depends on electricity, on trust, on permission, is not wealth, it's hope. And history has never been kind to those who confuse the two. When Rome's currency collapsed, those who held gold and land survived. When France's assignats burned into ash, a single gold coin could feed a family for years. When Britain devalued the pound, those who owned gold were not made rich, they were simply not made poor. Gold isn't speculation, it's protection. Silver is the people's money, small, divisible, practical. Land and resources are the foundation, things that produce, grow, and endure. These aren't theories, they're the mathematics of survival. In every age, in every collapse, the same truth rises from the ashes. Paper wealth burns, but tangible value endures. This moment is not about chasing profit, it's about preserving purchasing power when the paper storm hits. Because the transfer of wealth is already underway. The signs are all around us. Central banks hoard metal, debt spirals, currencies weaken, faith fades. History doesn't repeat, it rhymes perfectly. And those who recognize the rhythm before the crash don't just survive, they inherit what comes next. Subscribe now. The next videos will reveal the hidden empires and secrets of money that history tried to erase.